Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto was sent to Westeros. After Naruto defeated Madara and the 10-tailed beast, Kami sent him to his new destiny in Westeros. Found by Robert and Ned, Naruto will face the battles for the Seven Kingdoms. Now the stags, wolves and lions must deal with the fox as Naruto will shift the game for the Iron Throne. Welcome aboard! Chapter 7, The Shifts Occur. Back up north, Jon had escaped from the group of wildlings on the way back to Castle Black. He stopped his horse near a small clean pond of water to rest his horse and get some water. Jon knelt down next to the pond and drank as much as he could as his horse ate some grass. Jon was using some of the water to clean some cuts on his face when he heard footsteps. He turned around and saw Ygritte with an arrow pointed at him. He stood up as Ygritte kept her bow steady and an arrow pointed right at his chest. "Ygritte, you know I didn't have a choice. You always knew who I was, what I am. I have to go home now. I know you won't hurt me," Jon said. "You know nothing, Jon Snow," Ygritte said as Jon chuckled. "I do know some things. I know I love you. I know you love me. But I have to go home now," Jon said with a heavy heart as Ygritte felt heartbroken. Jon turned around to get on his horse, but Ygritte let go of the arrow and it hit him in the back of the shoulder. Jon fell to the ground in pain and was surprised that she hit him, but he had to leave. He got on his horse as Ygritte shot another arrow and hit his leg. Jon then grabbed the reins and rode away as Ygritte fired another arrow and hit him in the back. She cried as she watched him ride away. Back in King's Landing, the sun had risen over the horizon and filled the city with daylight. Many of the people were nursing hangovers or full bellies from a full day of drinking and festivities from the royal wedding, but they got back to their feet and resumed with the day jobs. The sun shined into the window of the chambers of King Naruto and Queen Marjorie. Naruto squinted his eyes as the light shined on them, raising his hand to block the light so his eyes could adjust. Naruto slowly opened his eyes and lowered his hand as his eyes adjusted. He looked around and saw the sun light up his chambers and then smiled as he looked down and saw Marjorie snuggling into his chest. Last night was one of the best nights he had in a long time. Naruto pat her hair and gently ran his other hand down her arm and kissed her head as Marjorie moaned and snuggled deeper into Naruto's chest. She slowly opened her eyes and looked up to see Naruto smiling at her. "Have the gods ever seen a more beautiful sight?" Naruto asked as Marjorie smiled and kissed his chest. "How are you, my king?" Marjorie asked as Naruto chuckled. "Wonderful." "And you, my queen?" Naruto asked. "A little sore from last night, but never better," Marjorie said as Naruto kissed her head. "Hope I wasn't too rough with you last night," Naruto said. "No, but I don't think I've ever imagined I could go for that long," Marjorie said as she kissed his chest and Naruto kissed her hand. "Well, I have much more stamina than anyone," Naruto said. "Oh, I know. It was amazing," Marjorie said as she got up, moving the blanket off her shoulders to reveal her nude body. Naruto pulled her close and kissed her on the lips as Marjorie returned the kiss and rested against Naruto's body. "I do believe a nice bath is in order before we start the rest of our day," Naruto said as Marjorie smiled and nodded. "Well then, my queen. Allow me," Naruto said as he scooped her up into her arms, getting a surprise squeal from Marjorie. Naruto then carried her over, bridal style, and to their bath chambers where a large tub of warm bathwater was waiting for them. As they entered the bath, servants entered the chambers and took the bed sheets away to replace them with clean ones. Naruto sat in the bath with Marjorie laying in between his legs and leaning into his chest as they let the warm water soak their bodies and relax. Naruto held Marjorie's hand in his as she leaned back and kissed him and he returned the kiss. The warm water soothed their bodies as Marjorie and Naruto took turns cleaning each other with sponges. "So, what is on the agenda for the day?" Marjorie asked. "Well, we have to plan for the trials of the accused in the dungeons. It will take some time to get everything set up. And with the war over and the Seven Kingdoms united, I'd imagine most of my time will be spent going through papers of trade agreements and notices," Naruto said as Marjorie chuckled. "And I get the rest of my life with you," Naruto said as he kissed her. "And perhaps your son. If last night was anything to go by, I'd imagine you will be a father someday," Marjorie said as Naruto smiled. I welcome the day. Naruto said as he then massaged her shoulders as Marjorie moaned. But, it doesn't hurt to help it along. Naruto said as Marjorie kissed him. After about an hour or two of intimacy and getting dressed, Naruto and Marjorie exited their chambers dressed in their clothes as Naruto escorted Marjorie to breakfast with his council and their families. Naruto and Marjorie walked into the main dining hall where the Rob, Talisa, Kat, Sansa, Arya, Bran and Rickon were eating. With them were Ser Davos, Tyrion, Oberyn, Illyria, Celis, Shireen, Tommen, Myrcella, Loras, Ser Barristan, Brienne and Kleber. Naruto and Marjorie took their seats next to one another as Naruto helped Marjorie into hers and servants came by with their breakfast. Good morning, Your Grace. I trust last night went well? Ser Davos asked. Extremely. Marjorie said. Best night's sleep I've had in a long time. Naruto said as everyone chuckled as he got some food. Thank you, Your Graces. If it's not too much to ask of you now, there are some matters I'd like to bring up. Tyrion said. Of course, what is it? Naruto asked. Well, during the wedding feast, which was wonderful I might add. Many of the lords and nobles, including some of the knights who were in attendance, were wondering when the royal tournament would be? Tyrion asked as Naruto was confused. Tournament? Naruto asked. It's been a custom that after a royal wedding, the king would host a grand tournament to honor his wedding and rule. It was a custom from the Targaryen rulers and happened to be one of the things that King Robert kept during his rule. Tyrion said. I made this up. Really? Naruto asked as he thought for a moment. Yes, Your Grace. It's been a tradition. Barristan said as Naruto thought for a moment. Well, I wish I had known that before. But I suppose we can try and do something. A small tournament with a nice prize winning. Naruto said as Tyrion nodded. I believe we can manage. After all the gifts you received from your wedding guests, I'm sure I can gather up a winning pot for the tournament. Tyrion said. Good, let me know if you need anything else. Naruto said as Tyrion nodded. Ser Kleber, work with Grand Maester Pycelle on setting up a small melee tournament. Yes, Your Grace. Kleber said. Good, then Oberyn, as new Master of Law, I am asking that you help prepare for the trials of the accused. Set up the crown room for the trials and let the accused know of their rights to their witnesses should they have any or if they should choose a trial by combat. Naruto said. Yes, Your Grace. Oberyn said. Good, then we know what we have to do. Naruto said as they enjoyed their breakfast. After they finished, Marjorie relaxed and spent some time with her grandmother and her handmaidens as Naruto had some things to take care of. Rob offered to help Ser Kleber with the tournament by helping organize the area and spread word. Tyrion took note on the possible expenses of the tournament and winning to be presented to the winner, and Oberyn would work on getting the trials ready. Naruto decided that he needed to give something back to an old friend. He walked out of the Red Keep with Brienne and Barristan by his side. Many of the citizens of King's Landing bowed and waved at their king as Naruto waved back. Kurama saw Naruto walking through the city and decided to join him. Naruto walked through the city and made his way to his destination, the September. He and Kurama walked up the stairs and into the Great September where the High Septon and Septas bowed at King Naruto. Naruto then walked over to one grave near the side that was in remembrance to King Robert of the House Baratheon. Naruto smiled as he then placed Robert's crown that he wore during his reign on his grave. Naruto left the crown there and left. It was the crown of the House Baratheon, so it should be with him. Naruto was having one of the King's Landing's finest smiths forge a new crown for Naruto for special occasions when he needed to wear one. He may be king, but he didn't really enjoy wearing it all the time. Back in Essos, after the liberation of Yunkai and release of the slaves, Daenerys and her group worked on shifting the city and installing a new council to take control over running the city. Then after gathering all the supplies they could get, taking the Yunkish and Second Sons assault catapults, and organizing a caravan of all the free slaves who would be accompanying Daenerys, they moved from Yunkai to the city of Meereen. They had traveled for about a week and decided to stop to rest the horses and regain their strength as they kept pushing towards Meereen. They all ate food and drank water, tended to the horses and made sure that everyone was doing fine. Daenerys decided to enjoy some quiet time with her dragons and Menma. After he went on a suicide mission into Yunkai to ensure that Daenerys won and freed the slaves, Daenerys kept him close. She finally admitted it to herself, she had fallen for Menma. He wasn't like Drogo. Menma was kind, brave, strong, a bit of a goofball which helped to keep her smiling, and he was incredibly loyal in keeping his friends and allies safe, but there was something else. She could tell that he was hiding something, nothing horrible like he massacred a whole city or anything like that, but he was hiding something. Even though Daenerys didn't know everything about him, she felt calm and happy next to him. Whenever he looked at her, she always had a smile on her face. He seemed to know what to do to make her smile. And he was very good with her dragons, they took a liking to him. Not just Drogon, but Viserion and Rhaegal as well. There seemed to be something about him that calmed them down and turned them like loyal dogs. She seemed to trust him. There was something about Menma that washed away her feelings of suspicion, but she wondered what he was hiding. Right now, Daenerys and Menma were sitting on a rock overlooking the ocean, enjoying the sea breeze and cool air as Drogon laid his head on Daenerys' lap. Drogon, Viserion and Rhaegal had all grown much larger in the past week after eating so much and flying around. They were becoming fiercer dragons. Daenerys pet Drogon on the head as she watched Viserion and Rhaegal fly in the distance, one of whom seemed to be carrying something. Menma was sitting on the ground next to Daenerys, sharpening his sword as he enjoyed the calm wind of the ocean. Drogon shifted and moved as he got comfortable as Daenerys soothed him and pet his head. Then Drogon let loose a loud burp of gas and hit Menma right in the face as Menma clenched his nose. Drogon," Menma said as Daenerys chuckled and Drogon seemed to smirk at Menma. Viserion and Rhaegal flew closer and dropped the corpse of a sheep on the ground in front of Daenerys and Drogon. It had been eaten partially as the smell of fresh food caught Drogon's attention. Viserion and Rhaegal landed and began to fight over the sheep as Drogon also made a fight for the sheep and the three flew away, fighting over their lunch as Daenerys and Menma chuckled. We'll have to figure out a steady way to feed them," Menma said. "Really?" Daenerys asked as she looked at him. "Oh yes. We can't have Drogon fly around, torching farms and stealing livestock for his lunch. That may come back to bite us in the future," Menma said as Daenerys nodded. "We'll think of something," Daenerys said as Yora walked over to the two. "Khaleesi, it's time to move on," Yora said as she nodded, and they moved back to the group and got on their horses, and the company of the Mother of Dragons moved forward to Meereen. Menma volunteered to ride ahead with some of her Dothraki to scout the area as Yora agreed it was a good idea. They would ride ahead a few leagues to make sure there weren't any surprises waiting for them. After riding for a few leagues, Menma and his group rested for a bit to let the others catch up. Menma and his group rested their horses as Daenerys and the company caught up as her Unsullied marched in formation and the Second Sons helped her freed slaves with carts of food and moving the war catapults. Menma then had two Dothraki riders scout ahead as the army had caught up while Menma looked around the land and took note of what grew. Daenerys and Missandei were near the edge of the road, overlooking the water of Westeros Bay and could see the glimpse of Meereen in the distance. "Have you ever been to Meereen?" Daenerys asked. "Several times, Your Grace, with Master Krasnes," Missandei said. "And?" Daenerys asked. "They say 1,000 slaves died building the Great Pyramid of Meereen," Missandei said. "And now an army of former slaves are marching toward its gates. You think the great masters are worried?" Daenerys asked. "If they're smart, Your Grace," Missandei replied as Menma walked over to the two. "What is it, Menma?" Daenerys asked. "Nothing, just something I'd like to talk to you about, in private," Menma said as Daenerys nodded to Missandei who left them alone. "Yes?" Daenerys asked as Menma pulled out a beautiful flower. A dusk rose. Menma showed her as she scoffed, thinking it was his attempts at flattery. "If that's your attempt at being romantic, you failed miserably," Daenerys said as she walked back to her horse as Menma followed and showed her a white flower. "And this one is called Lady's Lace," Menma said. "This is not flattery but strategy. More lessons on being a successful ruler." "Flowers?" Daenerys asked. "No, knowledge. You have to know a land to rule it. Not just its people, but its plants, its lands, its rivers, its roads, and their culture. By making an effort to show that you respect the land and the culture of the people who live on said land, you make for a better ruler," Menma said as Daenerys looked at him. Dusk Rose is particularly useful in tea as it eases fever. If you truly want them to follow you, you have to become a part of their world. Knowledge. Menma said as he then pulled out a red flower. Harpy's gold. Can't make tea from this one. Beautiful, but poisonous. Menma then put the flowers together and handed them to Daenerys. Learn. Menma said as he nodded and walked back to his horse as Daenerys looked at the flowers and smirked at Menma. Her smirk quickly left when she and Menma heard the shouts of one of her Dothraki who came racing back to tell Menma something. Menma then looked at Daenerys with a somber look as she, Missandei, Grey Worm, and Yora followed the Dothraki to what he had to show them, a slave child, killed and nailed to a wooden post as a warning. There's one on every mile marker from here to Meereen. Yora said. How many miles are there between here and Meereen? Daenerys asked. 163, Your Grace. Yora said. I'll tell the men to ride ahead and bury them. You don't need to see this. Menma said. You will do no such thing. I will see each and every one of their faces. Remove her collar before you bury her. Daenerys said as she now had 163 more reasons to take Meereen. While Daenerys had made some headway in Essos, Naruto was having some downtime. After Naruto had dropped off Robert's old crown, he decided to take a look at the book that Tyrion had given him, The Lives of Four Kings. He found it quite an interesting read as he read through Grand Maester Keith's accounts of Daeron the Young Dragon's siege of Dorne during his rule. Though things got interesting as he reached the section of Aegon the Unworthy. The accounts during this reign really showcased that Aegon the Unworthy earned his title as a horrid ruler whose act of legitimizing his bastards led to the Blackfyre Rebellion. Naruto chuckled as he read the horrid rule of Aegon the Unworthy and then continued to the final pages of Daeron the Good. He then raised an eyebrow as he read the last few sentences. I defeated my bastard brother, Daemon Blackfyre, why my father the oath even though of legitimizing him shows how much he earned the title, Aegon the Unworthy. The Blackfyre Rebellion, as I hear some start to call it, concerns me though. Daemon lay dead, but our fabled swords Blackfyre and Dark Sister have vanished. The loss of two great Valyrian swords that are prizes by my house and a civil war that turned half the nation against me troubles me dearly. But that is not all that has occupied my mind. The final words of Daemon and his sons troubles me more than anything. Daemon and his two sons said the same thing to me, the Blackfyres will rise again. Maybe not now, but the Great One has promised us that our house will rule, and all men shall die. Naruto read Grand Maester Keith's accounts of Daeron's last words. Huh, that's weird. All three of them said the same thing. And who's the Great One? Naruto said aloud as he was pulled from his thoughts by a knock on his door. Come in. Naruto said as the door opened to reveal Prince Oberyn. Your Grace, I hope I'm not interrupting you. Prince Oberyn said. No, I wasn't doing anything. What do you need? Naruto asked as Prince Oberyn walked over to him with some parchment. I have sent messages to our prisoners in the dungeons. The Mountain and Lorch demand trials by combat, as does Jaime Lannister. Oberyn said as Naruto looked over the parchment. And Cersei and Joffrey? Naruto asked. The former queen is less than cordial, she demands to speak to her father at once and won't say anything about her or her son's trial. Oberyn said. Well, she does have that right. I'll let Tywin know. Have you found two other judges? Naruto asked. Not yet. I do believe Robb Stark wishes to be one, so I will find another. Oberyn said as Naruto nodded and he saw that Prince Oberyn seemed to want to say something else. Anything else? Naruto asked. Nothing, Your Grace. It's just that I've come to the realization that my new duty as Master of Law will require all of my time here. Prince Oberyn said. Yes, it will. But you are more than welcome to bring your daughters to King's Landing. To stay with you here. Naruto said as Oberyn smiled. Thank you, Your Grace. You honor me. Oberyn said. Think nothing of it. A man is nothing without his family. Speak with Ser Davos and he can arrange a ship to dock in Dorne in a few days. Naruto said as Oberyn nodded. Your Grace. Oberyn said as he moved to leave. One question, would you happen to know what Marjorie is up to now? Naruto asked. I believe in the gardens with her handmaidens. No doubt talking about your wedding night. Oberyn said as Naruto chuckled and decided to go talk to Tywin. Marjorie and her handmaidens were together enjoying some tea and Marjorie was telling them about her wonderful wedding night. So, I said, darling, surely 4 times is enough. Are you trying to set a new record? Marjorie said as her handmaidens chuckled. He said, well, I'm sure we can break the current record by leaps and bounds. Marjorie said as they all chuckled as Lady Olenna and Catelyn Stark were escorted in by some city watch. Grandmother, mother. Marjorie said happily as she stood up and hugged her grandmother and Cat. Oh, I don't believe I can be given that title. Cat said. Oh, but you are. You are like a mother to Naruto and as such, you are now my mother. Marjorie said as Cat smiled. Thank you, Your Grace. Cat said. So, what brings you two here? Would you like to join us for tea? Marjorie asked. No, I'm afraid we can't. I just wanted to stop by and see how you were doing. A woman's wedding night is a very momentous occasion. Cat said. Indeed, and last night was indeed the best night of my life. And if last night is anything to go by, I imagine you can have a grandchild soon. A little prince or princess. Marjorie said. No other day will bring you as much joy as the day your child is born. Cat said as Marjorie smiled. Oh yes, children are a delight. That is until they get older and begin to form out on their own, then they can become troublesome if you didn't raise them right. Lady Olenna said as Marjorie chuckled. Walk with me, my dear. Olenna said to Marjorie as they walked through the Red Keep and to the gardens while Cat went to talk to Naruto. Lady Olenna and Marjorie were walking through the gardens as Olenna told her that she would be heading back to the Reach. I can't believe you won't stay. Naruto is more than happy to keep you here for as long as you like. Marjorie said. The time has come, my dear. I've done my part with your wedding and there is nothing more tedious than a trial. Except perhaps these gardens. If I have to take one more leisurely stroll through these gardens, I'll fling myself from these cliffs. Lady Olenna said as Marjorie chuckled. I truly wish you would stay. Marjorie said as Lady Olenna sat down and Olenna held her hand. I know, my dear. But I've done my job. You are now queen and you and Naruto are married. Lady Olenna said as Marjorie sat down next to her. He loves you, and you love him. But your marriage will be strained in the years to come and it will be up to you to keep it strong. Our love for one another is strong. Marjorie said. Oh, of that I have no doubt. But knowledge of Naruto's status as the last of his house has spread throughout the 7 kingdoms as well as the knowledge that he can marry more than one wife to restore his house. Lady Olenna said as that was what worried Marjorie a bit as she and Naruto had this talk. Did you know I wasn't supposed to marry your grandfather? Lady Olenna asked. No. Marjorie said. He was engaged to my sister, your great aunt Viola. I was to be given to some Targaryen or other. Marrying a Targaryen was all the rage back then. But the moment I saw my intended, with his preachy little ferret's face and the ludicrous silver hair, I knew he wouldn't do. So, the evening before Luther was supposed to propose to my sister, I got lost on my way back from my embroidery lesson and happened upon his chambers. Olenna said as Marjorie chuckled. How absent-minded of me. The following morning, Luther never made it down the stairs to propose to my sister because the boy couldn't bloody walk. And once he could, the only thing he wanted was what I'd given the night before. I was good, I was very, very good. You are even better, but you will need to act quickly. Olenna said. Naruto and I talked about this. It's true that he may take more than one wife, but that doesn't mean I will ever lose his place in his heart. Marjorie said. Maybe, but there are women out there who are just as determined and beautiful. You will have to assert your dominance over them should Naruto take another wife. Olenna said. And I do believe there is one you can start with now. Sansa? Marjorie asked. The young Stark girl. I saw the way she looks at him, her eyes filled with love and admiration for him. It's obvious she wants to be with him. More than likely, she will ask to stay here in King's Landing when the rest of the Starks go back north. And then she will try to make her move. She'll have an advantage, given she was raised with Naruto. Alina said. What are you suggesting? Marjorie asked. Naruto will more than likely take another wife, of that I have no doubt. But you must assert your dominance over the rest of them. Tell them that you're Naruto's first, and as such, you hold the most sway with his heart. You can make sure that the women he will marry know that you are his queen. Alina said as Marjorie thought for a moment. Back with Naruto, he and Tywin were walking in the throne room talking about Cersei and Joffrey. So, Lord Tywin, I hope you've been adjusting here well. I hope no one has been causing you any trouble. Naruto said. None, Your Grace. People have kept their distance and have been respectful either out of fear of what you would do or have not associated themselves with me. Tywin said. Give them time. All wounds will heal, but they will take some time. For now, we should focus on the matters at hand. The restoration and repair of the Seven Kingdoms and moving forward, which brings me to one of the two reasons I asked you here. Naruto said as they entered the small council chambers. Is this about my children? Tywin asked. Yes, for their upcoming trials. Jaime has asked for a trial by combat, but Cersei is refusing to answer for herself or her son until she speaks with you. Naruto said as Tywin thought for a moment. Why would she ask for me? Tywin asked. Don't know, but it seems that her first instinct is to talk to you. She thinks that you may be able to solve all her problems. Naruto said as Tywin exhaled. Thank you, Your Grace. I'll talk to her. Tywin said. What was the other reason you asked me here? The other reason isn't as serious, but it's something I'd like to know. You were Hand of the King for King Aerys Targaryen when he ruled over the Seven Kingdoms until his demise. From what I've heard from Robert before he died, and from Grand Maester Pycelle and Ser Barristan, is that the Seven Kingdoms stayed afloat because of your work. Can you tell me more about King Aerys? Naruto asked. Not too much to tell, Your Grace. The Mad King was, as his title said, a mad king. The man had lost his mind, burning men to their death with wildfire and laughing as he did. Killing Rickard and Brandon Stark, allowing his children to run amok and steal Lyanna Stark, which led to the war that eventually led to his own demise. The records and stories of the Mad King are true. Being the hand to the king of a mad man was very dangerous. I had served his faithfully for 20 years and the kingdom had prospered because of that. Aerys grew increasingly erratic and hostile, viewing any threat to his house or rule as treason. Tywin said. The behavior continued and got worse? Naruto asked. Indeed. Through the years, his behavior got worse and worse. He would mumble in his chair, saying things to himself that were completely ludicrous. And he became increasingly obsessed with the idea of using wildfire to become a pure dragon. The man became increasingly bitter and rude, marrying his son to Elia Martell instead of Cersei. The match seemed ideal and perfect. Marrying the prince to the daughter of one of the crown's most loyal houses, but no. I had grown tired of his provocative behavior and left. I was lucky enough to leave with my force and wealth intact. I heard that many hands of the kings weren't so lucky. Tywin said. Naruto said as he thought for a moment. The Mad King's babbles of insanity, did they ever make any sense? Not really, Your Grace. Typically shouts and mumbles about his enemies, people he thought were talking behind his back, his theory about wildfire and such. Tywin said as he then remembered something. There was one other thing he mentioned a lot. He repeated the phrase often, but I and others never could make any sense of it. What was it? Naruto asked. It was something along the lines of, the Great One is calling to me or I shall become a dragon and join the Great One. Something along those lines. Grand Maester Pycelle often thought that was a reference to death. Tywin said as Naruto thought for a moment. Why are you so interested in this, Your Grace? Nothing, just curious is all. Naruto said as he stood up. That'll be all, Lord Tywin. Tywin got up, bowed and left as Naruto thought for a moment. The Targaryens were becoming more and more interesting. After reading that book that Tyrion gave him, Naruto began to wonder more and more about the Targaryen line and the men of that house. King Aerys the Mad King and then Daemon Blackfyre. Did the Targaryen house have some kind of fascination with death, if that was the Great One? Reading that book also made him remember the other thoughts that Naruto's had his entire time in Westeros when he first arrived. About Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark and Ned. Rhaegar was known as a master swordsman and fighter, winning several tournaments and justs, and even besting Ser Barristan, who was considered the best fighter in the land. He had a reputation of being a skilled warrior, and his kidnapping of Lyanna Stark was the reason Robert rebelled and started a war. That much was known. Rhaegar kidnapped Lyanna and raped her, and ended up killing her, but Naruto wasn't so sure. After talking with Ser Barristan about his time protecting the Targaryens, Barristan told him that Rhaegar was a skilled warrior but was much gentler than people knew or remembered. Barristan told him about the times when Rhaegar would go down to the city and sing as a minstrel to entertain the people and give his money to people in need. Barristan said he was a good man, so what would cause him to kidnap Lyanna? Then Barristan kept on explaining his time protecting Aerys and Rhaegar. How Barristan was bested in a joust tournament at Harrenhal by Rhaegar Targaryen and he won the tournament. He was proclaimed champion, and then it was time to give a bundle of blue winter roses to his queen of love and beauty. You would think that would Elia Martell, who he was married to, but Barristan said that Rhaegar gave them to Lyanna. Barristan also told Naruto that when Rhaegar gave Lyanna the roses and named her his queen of love and beauty, he had the same look of love that Naruto is when he sees Marjorie, and even more shocking was that Barristan said that Lyanna seemed to reciprocate that gaze. Was she really kidnapped to the Tower of Joy in Dorne? And then there's the fact that Ned told him that he and his group had to fight 3 Kingsguard to reach Lyanna at the Tower of Joy. Why were the Kingsguard left to guard Lyanna rather than protecting Aerys' other children, Daenerys and Viserys? Rhaegar could have left soldiers to guard Lyanna when he went to war, yet there were Kingsguard. That didn't make any sense. Remembering that, Naruto also remembered when Ned explained to him the events of Robert's rebellion when they found him on their way home. Ned told him that Lyanna asked Ned to promise her something. What the promise was, Naruto had no idea. But then things began to click more and more. Naruto remembered that when Ned and Robert first found Naruto and helped him recover in King's Landing, Ned had a newborn baby with him, who Ned said was his bastard, Jon. An affair with a maid at an inn was what Ned told him, and Naruto believed that, but now not so much. As Naruto had got to know Ned more during his time at Winterfell, Naruto knew that Ned was an outstanding and honorable man. Very different than Robert, who kept his oath of marriage seriously. He loved Kat. So, he wouldn't cheat on her with a maid at an inn. That's completely against Ned's character, something that Naruto defended against Robert and Cersei when she accused him of fucking whores at Baelish brothel. Ned would never do something like that. So, was Jon a real bastard of Ned? Ned often commented on how much Arya looked like his sister Lyanna when she was younger, and Jon does look very similar to Arya as well. Is it possible for all these theories in his head to be true? Was Jon someone much more important than he even realized? Naruto had no idea. Up north in the lands near the wall, Tormund Giantsbane's group of wildlings were waiting in their camp for contact with the other group they were supposed to meet and the orders from Mance. Since they didn't have their ward, they sent a man back over the wall. Some of the wildlings were standing watch, while others were eating and staying warm near the fires. Tormund paced around the camp while Ygritte was making more arrows. Tormund looked at her diligently working and making a lot of arrows. You plan on killing all the crows yourself? He asked. You plan on sitting here and scratching your balls till winter? Ygritte asked. We wait for Mance's orders. Tormund said. You sent a man over the wall at the full moon. If he's not back yet, he's not coming back. Ygritte said. Then what is it you want? March against Castle Black with just this lot. Your pretty crow has a 1,000 men stationed there. Tormund said. Yeah, well, he's a liar. Ygritte said. He is? Shouldn't it be, he was? You said you put 3 arrows in him. Tormund said. Yeah, I did. Ygritte said. I've seen you slip a shaft through a rabbit's eye at 200 yards. If that boy's still walking, it's because you let him go. Tormund said. They then heard a whistle as one of their scouts told them that something was coming. They got ready to fight as they looked into the distance as the leader of the Thens and his group arrive. Thens. I fucking hate Thens. Tormund said as they sheathed their weapons. The leader or Magnar of the Thens, Styr, walked up to Tormund while the others walked into the camp. Mance sent you? Tormund asked as Styr growled in response. How did you find us? He asked as Styr looked to a then who had an owl on his shoulder, their warg. You came from the south, not the north. Tormund said. Took a detour. Got some supper from a village down that way. Why does the meat down here always taste so much better than it does on our side of the wall? Styr asked. Help yourself. Tormund said, pointing to a roasting rabbit on a spit. Maybe everything is just better fed down here. Fat and lazy. Easier for us. Styr said as he walked past Tormund and pat his shoulder. You didn't see us coming? Lost your warg. And that baby crow you had with you, lost him too? I'll answer to Mance. I won't answer to you. Tormund said to Styr. She yours? Styr asked, referring to Ygritte. I'm not anybody's. Ygritte said as she readied to fire an arrow at Styr's head while he chuckled. Too scrawny. Not like those crows at Castle Black. Think of them, stuffing their larders, stuffing their faces with ham and blood sausage and stew. Getting nice and fat and marbled. I know we've had our differences, Tormund. But just one time, before you die, you really ought to try crow. Styr said, looking at the arm that was roasting over the fire. Back at Castle Black, Sam and Gilly had arrived and were escorted in where Sam had to explain his situation that looked very unfavorable to Maester Aemon. Maester Aemon sat in his chair in his study as he saw Sam standing in front of him with Gilly to his side and a newborn baby in her arms. I know how this much look. What I meant was, I swear to you, my lord, I'm not a lord, my dear. Maester Aemon said. Not for many, many years. Every man who joins the Night's Watch renounces all former titles. Among other things. What is your name? Maester Aemon asked. Gilly. Gilly said. Ah, for the gillyflower. Lovely. Maester Aemon said. Yes, my Gilly froze, not knowing what to call him. Maester. Sam told her. Master. Gilly said. Maester. Sam corrected her. And the child? Maester Aemon asked. She hasn't chosen a name yet. Sam said. His name is Sam. Gilly said as Sam looked at her and smiled. Tarly, do you remember the oath you swore when you joined this order? Maester Aemon asked. He's not my child, Maester Aemon. She's one of Craster's wives. Sam said as Maester Aemon understood. I remember every word of the oath. Night gathers and my watch begins. I am the shield that guards the realms of men. The realms of men. That means her as well as us. We didn't build 500 miles of ice walls 700 feet high to keep out men. The night is gathering, Maester Aemon. I've seen it. It's coming for all of us. Gilly, you and your son will be our guests for the time being. We certainly cannot send you back beyond the wall. Maester Aemon said. Thank you, Maester. I can cook, and clean, and I can good. Maester Aemon said. Samwell, fetch a quill and inkwell. Maester Aemon told him as Sam moved to the table and got a quill and some paper. I hope your penmanship is better than your swordplay. Miles better. Sam said. We had 44 ravens at last count. Make sure they are all fed. Every one of them flies tonight. Maester Aemon told him as Sam got to work on writing 44 replicas of the same message for the 44 ravens. After about a few hours of that, Sam got Gilly situated at Castle Black and got her and Sam comfortable. But then heard some noise from the side gate. Rider approaching. Sam heard from the gate as he and the other members of the Night's Watch gathered to see what was going on. The watchguards brought a man into the courtyard, with some arrows in his body and barely conscious, wearing wildling coats. Sam and Pip came running to see who it was as they turned him over to see it was John. John! John! John, it's us. Sam said to him. I don't think he can see us. PYP said. PYP? John said. Sam, hush, now. You're home. Carry him inside. Gently. Sam said as they brought John inside to tend to his wounds. With Daenerys and her group, they had finally arrived at the outskirts of the city of Meereen. She and her group rode with her Dothraki army and her followers to the large gates of the city of Meereen. Her army stood in formation, ready to fight as Yora and Menma stood by her side. The great masters, slave owners and elites had gathered on the city walls walkways to see, and their slaves were in attendance as well. Daenerys, Yora, Menma and Missandei got off their horses as they stood before the great gates of Meereen, while all the masters looked down at Daenerys in hate. Then the gates to the city opened and one rider rode out, suited up in armor. "Are they attacking?" Daenerys asked. "A single rider. A champion of Meereen. They want you to send your own champion against them," Yora told her. The masters cheered for their champion as he stopped his horse until he was about twice the distance of a joust fight away from Daenerys. He then got off his horse and seemed to be doing something while speaking in Valyrian. "What is he doing?" Daenerys asked. "I think he is," Menma said as the champion took his cock out and began to piss at Daenerys from afar as an insult. Daenerys just looked at the man with lack of interest while the masters laughed their asses off. "He says that we are an army of men without man parts. He claims you are no woman at all but a man who hides his cock in his own asshole," Missandei said with disgust as she translated. "Don't listen to him, Daenerys. His words can't hurt you," Menma said. "They can, if half the city you intend to take is listening to them," Yora said. "I have something to say to the people of Meereen, but first I will need this one to be quiet." "Do I have a champion?" Daenerys asked. "Allow me this honor, Mother of Dragons." "I will not disappoint you," Grey Worm said. "You are the commander of the Unsullied. I cannot risk you," Daenerys said. "I've been with you longer than most of anyone here, Khaleesi. Let me stand for you today as well," Yora said. "You are my most trusted advisor, my most valued general and my dearest friend. I will not gamble with your life." Daenerys said to him. "I'll do it. I can take him out, keep it clean, be done with this soon, and this whole thing will be over in time for a nice glass of wine." Menma joked as he stepped forward as Yora and Daenerys raised an eyebrow. "You sure about this, Menma?" Daenerys asked. "Yeah. Besides, not much you can do to stop me," Menma joked. "No, you're right," Daenerys said with a smirk as Menma stepped forward, signaling the other rider that he was their champion. Then a guard from Meereen ran out to give their champion his jousting spear and to prep his horse. "He is very brave, Your Grace," Missandei said to Daenerys. "Yes. Win or lose, as long as the whole city is watching," Daenerys said as she walked up to Menma. "You sure you don't want a horse?" "Why would I want a horse?" Menma asked. "Horses are faster than men," Daenerys said. "Not as smart though," Menma said as Daenerys smirked and backed away. The Meereen champion then went into a full gallop towards Menma as everyone watched and the masters of Meereen cheered for their champion. Menma looked back at Daenerys and winked as she was a bit worried. The rider kept on getting closer and closer while Menma remained completely calm. He looked at his nails and bit off a hangnail, as if he wasn't paying any attention. Daenerys and Yora saw the rider getting even closer and closer and were beginning to get worried that Menma hadn't even drawn his sword yet. The rider was closer as Menma then twisted his leg into the dirt and then did a flying spin kick, shooting out his two boot blades and sending them through the air. The blades flew through the air and stabbed into the champion, with one hitting his heart and the other his throat, killing him instantly and thrown with such force that he was thrown off the horse. The horse then stopped in front of Menma as Menma calmed it down. Menma then looked back at Daenerys with a smirk as she chuckled. The masters then ordered the guards to open fire on Menma as they fired a volley of arrows at him. They hit the ground and one did manage to find its way towards Menma, but Menma caught it with his bare hands before it hit him. "Well, that was rude," Menma said as he dropped the arrow and Daenerys stepped forward. "I am Daenerys Stormborn," Daenerys said as the slaves listened with intent. "Your masters may have told you lies about me, or they may have told you nothing. It does not matter. I have nothing to say to them. I speak only to you," Daenerys said to the slaves. "First, I went to Astapor. Those who were slaves in Astapor now stand behind me, free. Next I went to Yunkai. Those who were slaves in Yunkai now stand behind me, free. Now I have come to Meereen. I am not your enemy. Your enemy is beside you. Your enemy steals and murders your children. Your enemy has nothing for you but chains and suffering and commands. I do not bring you commands. I bring you a choice. And I bring your enemies what they deserve. Daenerys said as she looked to Menma and nodded as he nodded back. Forward. Menma shouted as the Unsullied moved the catapults forwards. Fire. Daenerys shouted as the Unsullied launched the catapults that sent large wooden barrels over the walls of Meereen. When the barrels hit walls or stone, they broke apart and hit the floor, showing what was inside, collars of the free slaves. It was a message to the masters of Meereen as well as to the slaves. A day had passed since Naruto had talked to Tywin and Tywin was on his way to the dungeons. Cersei was sitting against the wall of her cell as she heard her son shout at the guards to let him out, saying he was the true king and his mother would deal with him soon. She wouldn't give that Naruto boy the satisfaction of making a trial that would mock her, her brother and her son. She wanted to speak to her father, and try and get out of this. While she was sitting, she remembered a moment from her youth, when she met a witch on her father's land. Flashback. In the lands of Casterly Rock, a young Cersei was walking through the woods of the land with her friend, Melara Heatherspoon. They were trudging through the mud and dirt as Cersei was determined, but Melara was not. We shouldn't be out here alone. Melara said. Why not? Cersei asked. If your father hears, he'll never know we're gone. Cersei said. But if he finds out? Melara said as Cersei turned to her. You don't need to be afraid of my father. Cersei said as she guided her friend through the woods. They kept on waking, past a small river and saw a hut with smoke coming out of the roof. That means someone was living there. Are you sure? Melara asked, afraid. Yes. Cersei said. We shouldn't go in. Melara asked. Of course, we should. Cersei said, not scared at all. They walked up to the hut and entered, past the bushel and twigs and twine as Cersei saw various dried herbs, plants, and medicinal things as well as dried dusts of what seemed to be magic ingredients. Then she saw what she had come for, the witch who lived in the hut. Cersei could only see the hands and legs of the witch as her face was clouded in the darkness. Cersei stepped forward as Melara bumped into a rat cage and shrieked, Get out! Get out! They heard as the witch leaned into the light and they saw her face, and she seemed like a normal woman. No boils or warts on her face, just normal. She was the wood witch, Maggie. Let's go. Melara said as she tried to pull Cersei away, but Cersei didn't move. No. Cersei replied, Listen to your friend. Maggie told Cersei. They said that you were terrifying, with cat's teeth and 3 eyes. You're not terrifying, you're boring. Cersei said, smugly. You don't know what I am. Maggie said. I know you're a witch, and you can see the future. Tell me mine. Cersei ordered. Everyone wants to know their future. Till they know their future. Maggie said. This is my father's land. My land. Tell me my future or I will have your 2 boring eyes gouged out of your head. Cersei threatened her as Maggie just chuckled and decided to amuse her. So she grabbed a knife on a table. Your blood. Give me a taste. Maggie said as she held out the knife. Cersei took the knife and cut her thumb a little so it would start to bleed. Maggie then grabbed Cersei's hand and drank the blood as Cersei and Melara looked at her weird. Maggie was finished and then pushed Cersei's hand away. 3 questions you get. You won't like the answers. Maggie said. I've been promised to the prince. When will me marry? Cersei asked. You'll never wed the prince. You'll wed the king. Maggie said. But I will be queen? Cersei asked. Oh yes, you will be queen. Maggie said as Cersei felt smug while Maggie smirked. For a time. Then comes the hero that was promised, who will take away everything you hold dear and dethrone you. Then he will be king, and his queens will prove themselves worthier than you. Cersei was disturbed by that comment. Will the king and I have children? Cersei asked. No, the king will have 20 children. And you will have 3. Maggie said. That doesn't make sense. Cersei said. Gold will be their crowns. Gold their shrouds, and your eldest will meet the fate he deserves. Maggie said as she began to cackle and laugh at Cersei while Cersei glared in anger. Come on, we have to go. Melara said to Cersei. We have to go. Cersei. End of flashback. Cersei was brought out of her memories when she heard her cell door open and her father walked in. She stood up as her chains rattled and looked at her father. Tywin saw his daughter looking worse for wear, with a look of desperation on her face, in the impending notice of her trial. Father. Cersei said. His Grace has made me aware that you wish to see me. Tywin said as Cersei looked shocked. His Grace? Father, he is no king. Joffrey is the true king. Cersei said as Tywin just looked at her. Still, after everything that has happened, you believe your bastard has the right to the throne? Tywin said. I suffered years of marriage with that pig, hearing him fuck countless women and bring this city and the kingdoms into our hands. My son was to be king. The greatest king that would exist, the king that the 7 kingdoms would adore, the king that was promised. Not some demon boy who took over the throne. Cersei said with a look of twisted devotion in her eyes. Really, well, it seems that since the new king has been in rule, things have never been better. Would we be able to do as well as he could? Tywin asked as Cersei scoffed. I didn't think it was possible. The great Tywin of Casterly Rock, the man with the pride and heart of lion, bending over like a whore in a brothel. Cersei said as Tywin smacked her hard across the face and sent her to the ground. Your pride is the reason for your imprisonment. Your pride led to your current predicament, and now, here you are. Using your status and myself to try and get yourself out of situations that you put yourself in. Well, no longer. Let the trial and the gods determine your fate. Tywin said as he walked out and closed the cell door behind him. Father, father. Father. Don't turn your back on me. You'll burn for this. I swear I'll get out and burn our house down. Cersei shouted as Tywin walked away, out of the dungeons, running into Marjorie, who was being escorted by city watchguards. Your Grace. Tywin said as he bowed as Marjorie smiled and bowed back. Lord Tywin. I hope to see you at the tournament. Marjorie said. I am heading there as we speak. And Your Grace? Tywin asked. I shall be there in a moment. Marjorie said as Tywin bowed and left as Marjorie walked down the hall of cells as the city watch saluted her. She then stopped at the door to Cersei's cell. Open the door, please. The guard then unlocked the door as Marjorie turned to her guards. Wait her for a moment. I won't be long. Marjorie said as she walked in and saw a disheveled and unkempt Cersei. Not the pompous, high and mighty Lannister she was years ago. My, this is not as glamorous as I assume you wished it could be, I imagine. Years of living in the Red Keep, with your father's riches to buy you everything you could want, it seems that it didn't do you any good. Marjorie said to Cersei as Cersei just glared at her. Here comes the demon's whore, dressing herself up as a queen. You are no queen. Cersei said. Well, I have a marriage that would say otherwise. I am the Queen Regent of the 7 Kingdoms. I am Naruto's wife, something I'm sure you are unfamiliar with seeing as how your marriage was nothing compared to mine. Your birth no legitimate heirs, so your right as queen comes into question. Marjorie said, mocking Cersei's time as queen. I am the queen. I earned that right, I have the status, the money, the power, I am the queen. Cersei shouted. Lies come easily to you. No innocence, decency, concern. Perhaps that's why Tommen and Myrcella haven't come down to see you at all. They've been having too much fun with their Uncle Tyrion and Naruto. He clearly knows how to care for children better than you did. Marjorie said as Cersei glared at her. Something all the kingdoms will know during your trial. Get out. Cersei said. Yes, I must be on my way. I'll visit again, when you've had the chance to calm down a bit. Marjorie said. I don't want to see you again. Cersei said. Oh, I hope you reconsider that. I've heard that men often go insane in the black cells beneath the Red Keep. Though I suppose your isolation will end when your trial begins. Marjorie said. Leave. Cersei said. Yes, I must. My husband awaits me at the tournament to honor our marriage. Marjorie said as Cersei shouted and threw her cup of water at the wall. "Get out, you whore!" Cersei shouted as Marjorie just looked at her. "Do you mean you?" Marjorie said as she left. Back with Naruto, he was waiting with the other people of King's Landing at one of the old melee tournament areas for the tournament in honor of the new kings and queens of Westeros. It was a small tournament, with about 24 knights and warriors participating. Many of the nobles and lords were in attendance, as well as the common people of the city who wanted to watch. Naruto sat in the stands with the Starks, Oberyn, Tyrion, Tywin, Davos and Shireen, and was looking around to see where Marjorie was as the people talked amongst themselves. "Where is she?" Naruto asked. "Here she comes," Tyrion said as Marjorie and her handmaidens entered the stands, and she took her seat next to Naruto. "Sorry, I'm late. Some matters needed my attendance," Marjorie said. "Is everything all right?" Naruto asked. "Perfect. Everything's perfect," Marjorie said as she kissed Naruto and smiled. "All right then. Let's get this started," Naruto said as he stood up and everyone else got quiet. "Everyone, sorry for the wait, but I assure you it will be worth it. For we are gathered to watch a spectacle of talent and bravery as these brave 16 warriors fight to show their skill and testament in battle. Usually, these tournaments are held in honor of a singular event or person, but not today. Today, this tournament is to honor the fallen with the clashing of steel, and for the preservation of peace," Naruto said as everyone clapped and cheered. "So, without further ado, let the first match of the tournament begin. Enter Sir Alistair Marco from Dorne and Sir Hayden Blair from Hornwood," Naruto shouted as the two knights stepped forward into the arena. Alistair Marco was dressed in very light chainmail and steel plate armor around his chest, arms and legs, which would protect his vital areas but not restrict his movements too much. Hayden Blair was the opposite and was in full knight plate armor. Alistair had his squire come over and hand him his two curved scimitars, while Hayden was given his shield and sword. The two stepped forward, faced each other and bowed, and then faced King Naruto and Queen Marjorie and bowed. "Begin!" Naruto shouted as the two began to fight. Alistair had increased mobility with his armor, while Hayden was able to block most of the sword attacks to his shield, and his armor protected his joints. The two fought as everyone cheered at the amazing fight. The fight would end when a warrior was pushed outside the circle that was drawn in the ground, or would surrender, or when Naruto would call a winner, or in the extreme case when a warrior was killed. Alistair swung his two swords and slashed at Hayden's shield as the swords embedded themselves in. Hayden then tossed his shield away, causing Alistair to lose one of his swords and Hayden to lose his shield. The two then fought, clashing their swords and armor until Alistair managed to push Hayden out of the arena, winning the match. The crowd cheered as everyone clapped. Even though he lost, Hayden was a good sport and Alistair helped him back to his feet as the two waved at the crowd and shook hands as they left the arena. The tournament kept on fighting with other knights like the Hound, Sir Roderick, Sir Barristan, Kleber, Brienne, Oberyn and other knights participated in the tournament, and the crowd went wild at the great display of skill in combat. There weren't too many serious injuries, a few nasty cuts, slashes, bruises and one almost death, but was saved by the maesters. The final fight of the tournament would be against Sir Barristan, who bested Brienne in a fight, and Oberyn, who defeated Kleber. The two combatants were in the arena. Barristan was in the armor that Naruto gave him with his shield and sword, as Oberyn wore light armor, some light chainmail, and had his trusty viper spear, as he was called the Red Viper. But Oberyn kept his blade free of any poison, not wanting to kill the Lord Commander of Naruto's armed forces. The two men stood in the arena as they faced Naruto, and Naruto stood up. "This is the final fight of the tournament, and I couldn't have asked for a better fight. Sir Barristan the Bold," Naruto said as everyone cheered. "And Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper," Naruto said as they cheered. "May the best fighter be victorious. Begin!" Naruto shouted as the two warriors turned to each other and bowed. Then Barristan readied his sword and shield as Oberyn spun his viper spear and held it in front of him. There was a brief moment of silence as both fighters gauged each other, trying to deduce the best angle and method of the first strike, which would have a big impact on the rest of the fight. Then Oberyn stepped forward and did a figure-8 spin, and did an overhead strike with his spear as Sir Barristan blocked the strike with his shield. Barristan then swung his sword as Oberyn raised his spear to block it. Oberyn then kicked Sir Barristan away and did a spear thrust as Barristan sidestepped the thrust, but the blade did nick his armor. He then swung his sword at Oberyn's head as Oberyn ducked under the sword swing and stepped forward and stabbed his spear at Barristan's feet, but Barristan brought his shield down to block the spear. Barristan then brought the shield up and hit Oberyn in the face with his shield, knocking him on his back. Oberyn then rolled to the side to avoid a boot to his chest. He then did a leg sweep and knocked out Barristan's front leg, causing him to fall to his knee. Oberyn then stabbed the ground as Barristan rolled out of the way and got to his feet. He then swung his sword as Oberyn blocked it with his spear, but then got hit in the chest by Barristan's shield. Oberyn flipped back to his feet and did a butterfly spin to avoid a sword swipe to his feet. He then did a figure 8 spin and did a spear thrust as Oberyn blocked it with his shield and then swung his sword down as Oberyn blocked using his spear. The fight continued for well over an hour, with both fighters beginning to feel a bit of wear and tear in their step from cuts or bruises. The fighters gauged each other's strength to determine the next move as Barristan stilled himself and readied for his final strike to try and end this fight. Barristan charged forward as he thrusts his shield forward, so Oberyn moved to the side to avoid it. Oberyn then brought up his spear to block the incoming sword slash, but was instead surprised by a boot to spear which forced Oberyn back from the force. Barristan then brought down his sword with all his strength as Oberyn brought up his spear staff to block it, but the force of the blade broke the staff in half. Barristan then kicked Oberyn to the ground and pointed his sword at his face, forcing Oberyn to submit. Oberyn smirked at Barristan, as the old warrior was still capable of keeping his title of one of the fiercest warriors in the Seven Kingdoms. Oberyn put up the sign of defeat as Barristan smiled and the crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Congratulations to Sir Barristan the Bold, Naruto said as Barristan helped Oberyn to his feet as Barristan won the tournament. Back up north, the new recruits were being trained by seasoned Night's Watch in archery and combat as Sam was on his way to see Jon and see how he was doing. He passed some new recruits doing archery training and walked into the medical hall where Jon was recovering. Sam walked in and saw Jon putting on his Night's Watch clothes. "How are you?" Sam asked. "I've been better. But I'm lucky to be alive," Jon said as he put on his jacket. "What happened?" Sam asked. "You and the others should have been back a while ago, and why were you wearing a wildling outfit? Things got messy quick. I needed to blend in with the wildlings in order to survive and try and get back here. And it's a good thing I did. Mance has an army moving to attack Castle Black. We need help," Jon said. "Well, we got some new recruits that we've been training. Especially this new boy, Gendry. He seems to be pretty decent, reminds me of you a bit," Sam said as Jon chuckled. "I mean, we're going to need more than a few more men. Armies of soldiers, horses, ammunition, food. Naruto is still regent, we can ask for aid," Jon said. "Well, some things changed when you were gone, Jon. Naruto Uzumaki isn't the regent anymore, he's the king," Sam said as Jon was surprised. "Really?" Jon asked. "Aye. And with the help of Robb Stark and the Reach, he won the war against the Lannisters," Sam said as Jon smiled. "I knew he could do it," Jon said as Sam smiled, but then turned to a frown. "They're ready for you," Sam said as Jon got serious and picked up his coat as Sam held out Longclaw, but Jon didn't take it. "He's wanted to hang me for a while. Now here's his chance," Jon said. "No one's going to hang you, you've done nothing wrong," Sam said. "I've done plenty wrong," Jon said as he walked to the eating area where the leaders of the Night's Watch were gathered, with Alliser Thorne presiding as acting commander with the death of Jeor Mormont. The head of the builders, stewards, and Maester Aemon were in attendance as well to ask Jon what the hell happened and to decide his fate. "So, you admit you murdered Corran Halfhand?" Thorne asked. "No," Jon replied. "You put your sword through a brother of the Night's Watch. What do you call that?" Thorne asked. "He wanted me to kill him," Jon said as Thorne and Artanyu chuckled. Artanyu was a captain of the City Watch back in King's Landing who Naruto sent to the Wall as punishment for his part in helping the Lannisters. When he came to the Wall, he immediately suckered up to Thorne to secure his place above the other brothers, despite his lack of experience. "The bastard tells a lie. What would you expect?" Artan joked. The half-hand believed that our only chance to stop Mance was to get a man in his army. Jon said, "Don't talk about the half-hand as if you knew him. He was my brother." Thorne said, "And you know he would do anything to defend the wall." The free folk would have boiled him alive, but letting me kill him, free folk? Listen to him. He even talks like a wildling now. Arton said, I talk like a wildling. I ate with the wildlings, I climbed the wall with the wildlings, I lay with a wildling girl. Jon said, "You admit to breaking your vows then?" Arton asked, "I do." Jon said, "The law is the law. The boy must die." Arton said with a smug face, "If we behead every ranger who lay with a girl, the wall would be manned by headless men." Maester Aemon said, "There's a difference between sneaking to the mole's town brothel and sleeping with the enemy." Thorne said, "While we sit here, debating which laws I broke, Mance Rayder marches on the wall with an army of 100,000. Jon said, "Impossible. You can't get 50 wildlings together before they start killing each other." Thorne said with a chuckle, 100,000, he's united the Thens, the Thornfoots, the Ice River clans, he has giants fighting for him. Jon said, "Giants?" Arton asked with a chuckle, "Have you ever been beyond the wall, sir?" Jon asked Arton, "I was a captain in the city watch in King's Landing, boy." Arton said, "And Naruto sent you here for treason. You must not have been very good at it." Jon said as Arton stood up, "How dare you?" Arton shouted, "There's a band of wildlings south of the wall already. Led by Tormund Giantsbane. I killed their warg and 3 others. They shot me full of arrows. Their orders are to attack Castle Black from the south when Mance hits it from the north. The signal for the attack will be a bonfire. Mance said it would be the biggest fire the north has ever seen." Jon said, "That's the truth, all the truth. Do you intend to execute me, or am I free to go?" Before Thorne could speak, Maester Aemon spoke. "None of us are free. We are men of the Night's Watch. But we won't be taking your head today, Jon Snow. Go on." Maester Aemon said as Jon bowed, "Maester Aemon. With the army marching on the wall, we should send a raven for aid. Naruto Uzumaki is king of the 7 kingdoms, a friend to House Stark and one of the men who raised me. He knows the tales of the north and the threat the wildlings possess. He would more than happily help." Jon said, "I shall send a raven as soon as possible." Maester Aemon said as Jon bowed and left. Then the leader of the builders helps Maester Aemon up and walked into his room. "I am acting commander here, Maester Aemon." Thorne said, "Yes, you are." Aemon said, "And I don't trust the bastard." Thorne said, "He told the truth." Aemon said, "And you always know when a man is telling a lie. How did you acquire this magical power?" Aemon asked. "I grew up in King's Landing." Aemon said as he left. In Slaver's Bay, Daenerys and her forces were camped outside the walled city of Meereen. She and Menma came up with a plan to take down the leaders of the city from the inside, and it might work. The sooner they could get it going, the better. While Menma and Daenerys were working out the remaining issues, Missandei was teaching Grey Worm, the common tongue in Westeros, so that when Daenerys did go over, he would be able to speak. They were in a tent as Missandei was helping Grey Worm with some simple sentences. "My name is Grey Worm. I come from the summer ILS." Grey Worm said, as he was looking at a sentence that Missandei wrote on a piece of paper. "Isles, Summer Isles." Missandei said, correcting him, "Summer Isles." Grey Worm said as Missandei smiled. Grey Worm then asked her where she came from. "I am from an island called Narth." Missandei said as Grey Worm spoke but in Valyrian as she reminded him to try plain tongue. "When they took you?" Grey Worm asked. "When did they take me?" She said, "I was 5 years old. You remember your home?" Grey Worm asked. "I remember when they rowed us away from shore. How white the beaches were. How tall the trees. And I remember my village burning. Fire rising into the sky. Do you remember your home?" Missandei asked as Grey Worm shook his head no. Unsullied. Always, unsullied. Before unsullied, nothing. Grey Worm said, "That's not true. Perhaps one day you will return to the Summer Isles." Missandei said, "I don't want return." Grey Worm said as he said a phrase in Valyrian, "Kill the masters?" Missandei asked, "Kill the masters." Grey Worm said with determination, "How are the lessons going?" Daenerys asked as she, Menma and Yora walked in. Missandei and Grey Worm then stood up to talk to her. "Very well, Your Grace." Missandei said. "Missandei is teacher good, my queen." Grey Worm said as Missandei and Daenerys chuckled. "A good step in the right direction." Menma said, "You'll have to continue later. It's time." Daenerys said as Grey Worm nodded and they left the tent. The second the sun went down and it was dark, Daenerys enacted her plan to take over Meereen. Menma, Grey Worm and a group of Unsullied quietly approached the walled city through one of the water gates near the river. Grey Worm and his Unsullied were dressed like slaves so that they wouldn't draw suspicion. When they got into the city, they would arm the slaves and help take the city down from within. Menma and the group quietly made their way up the river bed that led to the water gate. Menma signaled them to stop as he saw a guard overlooking the wall near the gate and he would have seen them if they moved. He waited for a bit, as the guard looked out into the darkness, and then the guard moved away resuming his patrol. When he saw it was clear, he nodded to Grey Worm and the group made their way to the gate. Menma grabbed the bars on the gate as the Unsullied grabbed the counterweight and they pulled while Menma lifted and opened the gate. Menma then held it open as the Unsullied walk in as Grey Worm was the last one. "Good luck, my friend." Menma said. "Thank you." Grey Worm said as he walked in and Menma lowered the gate quietly so no one would hear. He then made his way back to Daenerys while Grey Worm and the others played their part. Grey Worm led the others through the water gate and through the lower passages of the city to the main area where the slaves were housed. Currently, the male slaves were all together as some were talking about joining up with and helping Daenerys to take over Meereen. One man in particular, Mosadder, was telling everyone that they should join up with Daenerys. "You heard her. She said she came to free us." Mosadder said, "You're a fool. The masters are too strong." One of the elder slaves said, "She will protect us. She defeated the master's champion. She has a great army. You want to live the rest of your days in chains?" Mosadder asked. "I want to live. You saw what they did to those children. What do you think they'll do to us?" One of the elders asked. "I've been through 2 slave revolts, boy. They always end the same way, the masters in power and the slaves dead." Another elder said, "Vala Morgulus." They heard as they turned to see Grey Worm and the Unsullied as they walked in. "But I promise you, a single day of freedom is worth more than a lifetime in chains." Some of the elders stood up, seeing the new people enter. "Who are you?" An elder asked. "This one is called Grey Worm. I was taken as a baby by the masters of Astapor, raised and trained as Unsullied. Now I fight for Daenerys, the mother of dragons and breaker of chains." Grey Worm said, "You are Unsullied? They taught you how to fight before you could walk." "We are not soldiers." An elder said, "We have no training, no weapons." Another elder said as Grey Worm and his Unsullied dropped the bags they were carrying to reveal swords. The slaves gathered around the bags as Mosadder picked one up. "There are 3 slaves in this city for every master. No one can give you your freedom, brothers. If you want it, you must take it." Grey Worm said. Dawn had begun to break as the darkness was beginning to lift from the city of Meereen. One of the slave masters and 2 guards were walking through the alleyways and streets of the city when the master spotted something that made him angry. Written on one wall was the phrase "Kill the masters" in red paint, probably blood. The master cursed in Valyrian and wanted the people who did this to pay when his guard alerted him. The master looked in the direction of the guard and saw he was looking at the Great Pyramid of Meereen, and at the top where the great gold harpy statue was, he saw a banner being put up that was black with a red dragon on it. He then looked down the street and saw about 8 slaves armed with swords running to him. The guards ran to fight them as the master tried to leave through the other alley, but another group of 10 slaves walked down that alleyway. The master then turned to the back way, but he was surrounded by slaves and shouted cries of mercy as the slaves charged at him and stabbed him with their swords. In a matter of hours, the masters were overthrown and the Unsullied quickly assumed their dominance. The city was under the control of Daenerys Targaryen. After the conquest of the city, Daenerys was walking along the walkway that overlooked the ocean with all the slaves cheering and waving at her with bright smiles. They threw down their collars and shouted Misa as she walked by. Daenerys walked by with a group of children walking with her, and Menma and Yora walked behind her. Daenerys, Menma and Yora walked with her as they walked to the main overlook podium the masters used to use when they watched their slaves. A group of her Unsullied were there along with Grey Worm and Dario as the second sons were moving up the remaining masters that lived in the city. Remind me, Sir Yora. How many children did the wise masters nail to mileposts? Daenerys asked. 163, Khaleesi. Yora replied. Yes, exactly. Daenerys said as she then looked at Grey Worm and nodded. He understood and then nodded to one of his men who gave a command, and the Unsullied began to move the masters away. Daenerys, can I have a word for a second? Menma asked as Daenerys glared at the masters and then moved to the side to talk to Menma. Yes? Daenerys asked. We won. The city is yours now. And everyone in this city are your subjects. But perhaps it might be wise to show some mercy. Menma said as Daenerys looked at him weird. I would think that you of all people would agree with what I'm doing. Daenerys said. I understand, and believe me, I would probably do the exact same thing that you're doing, but the fact is that you are not me. The true mark of a great leader is knowing that sometimes the best way to combat injustice is with mercy. Menma said. I will combat injustice with justice. Daenerys said, determined as the Unsullied began nailing 163 masters to wooden posts like they did to the slave children they put up as a warning against Daenerys. Back in King's Landing, a day had passed since the end of the tournament and all the knights had fought bravely, but Ser Barristan was declared the champion once again with Oberyn right beside him as the next best. After the fun of the tournament, things were more serious now as the Red Keep was now getting set up for the trials of the accused and Oberyn's daughters were coming as well. Naruto woke up in his bed, yawning as he sat up to get the sleepiness out of him. He cracked his joints and rubbed the tiredness out of his eyes as he got out of his bed and put on some pants. He then took a drink of water as he smiled, seeing Marjorie sleeping in bed, the blanket and sheets covering her modesty. He gently sat on the bed and kissed her head and ran a finger down her face as Marjorie groaned and began to wake up. She opened her eyes and saw Naruto smiling and looking at her as she smiled back. Good morning. Marjorie said. It is. Naruto said as he leaned down and kissed her as she kissed him back. How did you sleep? Blissfully. Marjorie said as Naruto smiled and got up, but before he could walk away, Marjorie grabbed his hand and pulled him back into bed and straddled him. And where does the king think he is going this morning? To get ready for the day, my queen. Naruto said as he placed his hands on her waist and moved them up to grab her supple breasts, causing Marjorie to moan in pleasure. Marjorie then bent down and kissed him as Naruto kissed back. Marjorie roamed her hands through his spiky hair as Naruto grabbed her rear and squeezed it. Well, my king. Your queen needs some attending. Marjorie whispered as Naruto obliged. Lemon warning. Naruto squeezed Marjorie's rear as she moaned, and they both kissed each other with passion. Marjorie then moved her hand south and began to undo Naruto's pants as Naruto kicked them off. Naruto continued to kiss Marjorie as he kept his right hand on her breast while his other hand moved south to her womanhood and felt her wetness. Naruto inserted a finger as Marjorie gasped and moaned in pleasure, wanting more. More, no finger. I want you in me. Marjorie moaned out as she used her hands to grab Naruto's manhood and line it up at her womanhood. She then slowly impaled herself on his hard 10-inch manhood. She let out a loud moan of pleasure as Naruto groaned, feeling how tight she was. Marjorie then began to slowly move herself up and down, riding Naruto's manhood in complete joy and pleasure. She increased her pace as she placed her hands on his stomach to balance herself as Naruto thrusts up to match her speed. Ah, Marjorie. Naruto said, feeling amazing as he was having sex with his wife. Naruto. You feel so good. Marjorie moaned out as she quickened her pace and Naruto reached his hands up to grab her breasts. He grabbed her nipples and gave them a light squeeze and twist as he sat up and kissed her neck. Naruto, more. Marjorie said as Naruto kissed her neck and her cheek as he increased his thrust pace as Marjorie grabbed onto his shoulders. Naruto kept thrusting harder and faster as Marjorie moaned louder and clawed his back in pleasure as Naruto grunted a bit as Marjorie's nails left some scratches. Marjorie's groans and moans got quicker and faster and louder as Naruto felt her getting tighter, meaning she was close to climaxing. So, he kept thrusting and after 3 more thrusts, Marjorie came from pleasure and squirted on his lap as she shouted, "Ah!" Marjorie shouted as she had an amazing release. She was breathing heavily as Naruto smiled and kissed her neck. She had her release, but Naruto hadn't. That was amazing. It's not over yet. Naruto said with a smirk as he flipped over so he was on top and began thrusting into her again as Marjorie screamed in pleasure having just had an orgasm so she was sensitive. More, more. Marjorie shouted as she hooked her legs around his waist as Naruto kept thrusting. Naruto leaned up and put his hands on her back and lifted her off the bed as he kept thrusting into her as their flesh slapped against each other. God, you're so tight. Naruto shouted as he groaned and moaned in pleasure. Only for you, my king. Marjorie shouted as her face had an expression of pure bliss. Naruto then unhooked her legs and turned her around so she was on her knees and Naruto took her from behind, doggy style. More, harder, faster. Marjorie managed to say in her feeling of bliss as Naruto thrusts harder and faster, as they were being watched. Sansa had woken up early and was wandering the halls of the Red Keep. She then decided to head to Naruto's chamber to see if he was awake. She walked to his chambers when she heard him grunting and moaning. Sansa quietly walked up to his door, thinking he was in trouble and very quietly, opened the door slightly so she could sneak a peek as to what was happening inside and what she saw made her gasp in shock. She saw Naruto having sex with Marjorie. She saw them kissing and saw Naruto in all his glory, seeing him naked and also seeing his manhood causing her to blush and her face to heat up. She felt wrong watching them but she couldn't stop herself from watching Naruto thrust into Marjorie. Sansa imagined that it was herself that Naruto was thrusting into as she saw Marjorie's face of pure bliss and her breasts moving up and down from Naruto's powerful thrusts. She felt herself getting warm and wet down below as her hand began to make its way past her skirt and felt her wetness. Sansa inserted a finger into her maidenhood and couldn't stop herself from pleasuring herself as she watched Naruto and Marjorie have sex. She began to moan and breath heavy as she continued to pleasure herself as Naruto kept thrusting into Marjorie. Naruto felt his release coming soon and increased his pace as Marjorie had an orgasm a few minutes ago when Naruto was thrusting into her from behind and felt a third one coming and she could tell that Naruto was close to his end. Inside, Naruto, release it inside me. Marjorie shouted as Naruto thrusts faster and with one final powerful thrust, he thrusts deep into her, penetrating deep and released his load into her. Naruto shouted in release as Marjorie screamed in pleasure as she squirted and stained the bed sheets as Sansa also had her release and stained her skirt. Naruto and Marjorie breathed heavily as Naruto and Marjorie fell onto the bed and basked in each other's company in the afterglow of lovemaking. Sansa breathed heavily as well as she then quickly realized what she did and quickly got up and left for her chambers to change herself. End of Lemon. That was amazing as always. Naruto said as he kissed Marjorie and Marjorie kissed him back. Indeed. You are truly amazing, my king. Marjorie said as she snuggled into his chest. As are you, my queen. Naruto said as the two spent a minute of silence in each other's arms when Marjorie spoke. I wonder if Sansa enjoyed the show we put on for her. Marjorie asked as Naruto kissed her neck. If those moans of hers were anything to go by, she did. Naruto said as Marjorie moaned as Naruto kissed her neck. She loves you, you know. Marjorie said as Naruto kissed her cheek. I know. Naruto said. I imagine she will want to stay here in King's Landing to be close to you. And even ask to be your second wife. Marjorie said as Naruto looked at her. Does that bother you? Naruto asked, caring about how she felt as Marjorie smiled and held his cheek. A little, but I've come to realize that just as you are the king of the 7 kingdoms, you will need more wives to rebuild your family line. But I know that you will always love me. Marjorie said as Naruto kissed her full of passion. I will always love you. Naruto said as Marjorie smiled. Your future wives better be ready. They'll have to be approved by me first, Marjorie said as Naruto chuckled and leaned up as Marjorie hugged him from behind. We should get ready. Oberyn's family will be here soon, Naruto said as Marjorie nodded. And the trials will commence soon as well, Marjorie said as she got up from the bed and walked to the bathroom as Naruto was memorized by the shake of her rear and then quickly followed to get cleaned up. Naruto got dressed in his semi-formal clothes, which consisted of brown leather pants, his boots, his belt with kyubi attached to his waist, a white undershirt, and a dark orange tunic with streaks of red on the sleeves like flames. He put his necklace on as he saw Marjorie come out from behind her dress curtain to see her dressed in her traditional blue dress that she usually wears. But she had on the wolf necklace that Kat gave her and Naruto's necklace as well, beautiful as ever, Naruto said as Marjorie smiled and kissed him as the two left their chambers. Naruto and Marjorie walked down the hall to the dining hall to eat breakfast. After a quick meal, they walked down the Red Keep with Barristan, Brienne and Oberyn accompanying them. They walked out of the castle to see Robb, Kat and Talisa talk with some knights from Dorne, Tyrion talking to Pycelle, Celis was talking with Arya, Tommen and Myrcella as well. They all smiled as they walked through the outdoor courtyards to the banks of the river near the castle. They made their way to the small port dock area where a group of city watch were waiting with Oberyn and Ilaria were patiently waiting. Your Grace, Oberyn said, seeing Naruto as he and Ilaria bowed. There's no need for that, Oberyn. So, are they here yet? Naruto asked. Yes. The ship has just arrived, and they're arriving with the smaller boats, Oberyn said, pointing out to the bay to see the large ship that was docked and two smaller boats rowing in. It seems that we also have more guests, Barristan said, seeing more guests than Oberyn said. Oberyn said that 3 of his daughters would be arriving now with the rest of his daughters to arrive later. Who are they? Naruto asked as he didn't recognize them. I don't believe it. It seems that my brother has sent someone else as well, Oberyn said. Who? Marjorie asked. My niece, Princess Arianne Martell, Oberyn said as Naruto and Marjorie got a better look at her. Naruto and Marjorie had to admit, she was a beautiful woman. She had wonderful olive skin, large dark red eyes and long black hair that ran down her back into ringlets to the middle of her back. She had on lovely hair bracelet made of lovely jewels and gems that fit with her long black hair. She was wearing a lovely sand yellow dress that was draped on her shoulders and showcased her curvaceous body, as Naruto saw that many of his men were looking at her. Think of Arianne Martell as Emmanuelle Creaky in appearance. But from what Naruto had heard, Arianne Martell was as smart, calculative and driven as she was beautiful. This would make for one interesting meeting. The 2 boats landed at the docks as the city watch helped the people off the boats and grabbed the luggage. Ilaria smiled as she saw her daughter she had with Oberyn, and Oberyn smiled seeing his 2 eldest daughters as well. Mama, the girl with short hair said as she walked up to Ilaria and hugged her as Ilaria hugged back and kissed her forehead. The other 2 girls walked up to Oberyn and hugged him as Oberyn smiled and hugged them back. It is good to see you, Oberyn said as he then turned to Naruto. Your Grace, allow me to introduce my daughters, Nymeria, Oberyn said as Nymeria stepped forward along with the 2 others, Obara and Tyene. Obara was the oldest daughter of Oberyn. She had long black hair like Nymeria and Arianne, but it was tied into a ponytail and tucked behind her so that it would be an obstruction in a fight. She was also wearing light leather armor with a snake symbol on her belt and looked much like Oberyn. Nymeria had long hair as well, but she had a different look upon her because of her mother was of Far Eastern descent. She and Tyene were wearing nice Dornish dresses. Tyene was the youngest of the 3 and the daughter of Ilaria and looked like her. She had short black hair with 2 snake daggers attached to her waist. All 3 girls bowed in front of Naruto. It is an honor, Your Grace, Obara said as Naruto chuckled. Rise. The honor is mine. I've heard tales of the mighty sand snakes, warriors who were as beautiful as they were deadly. It is my honor to have you here in King's Landing. As long as Oberyn wishes it so, you may stay here as long as you may like and treat King's Landing as your home, Naruto said as they smiled. Allow me to introduce my wife and queen, Marjorie Tyrell Uzumaki. Welcome to King's Landing. It is an honor to meet all of you, Marjorie said. Uncle, Oberyn turned to see Arianne there. Arianne. It's as wonderful to see you. Oberyn said as they hugged. Though your presence does come with some shock. I didn't think my brother would be sending you. I asked to come. Arianne said, how did you manage to convince my brother? Oberyn asked. I'll admit, it took some time, but after receiving your note about sending Obara, Nymeria, and Tyene to King's Landing, I managed to convince him that if I were to go, it would give him a better picture of how the new king is. Arianne said as she looked at Naruto and smiled. He was gorgeous. Tall, built, strong, and a king, just the kind of man she wanted. Your Grace, it is an honor to meet you. My father, Prince Doran, sends his regards. Arianne said. The pleasure is mine, Princess Arianne. Although your arrival is a surprise, we welcome you nonetheless to King's Landing. Naruto said with a bow as Arianne smirked. I guess the rumors about King Naruto are true. A true gentleman. Arianne said as she ogled Naruto, while Naruto chuckled and Marjorie glared at her. Allow me to introduce my wife, Queen Marjorie Tyrell Uzumaki. Naruto said as Marjorie stepped forward. A pleasure, my queen. Arianne said. The pleasure is mine. Marjorie said. Make yourselves at home here in King's Landing. Should you need anything, you must simply ask. Naruto said as they nodded and walked back to the Red Keep as Oberyn talked with his daughters and Arianne kept looking at Naruto. Naruto was talking with Marjorie when Ser Davos ran up to him. Your Grace. Davos said as he then stopped to catch his breath. Your Grace, gasp. Easy, Davos. Breathe, then speak. Naruto said as Davos took a breath. Your Grace, 2 ravens came down from Castle Black. It's of the utmost importance that we meet and discuss this. Davos said as Naruto saw he was serious and nodded. All right. Oberyn, get your daughters settled in and meet in the council chambers. Naruto said as Oberyn nodded. Naruto then looked at the city watch. Gather the rest of the small council and have them meet us in the council chambers. Yes, Your Grace. They said. Hang on, Marjorie. Naruto said as he pulled her close and flashed to the council chambers. Naruto and Marjorie waited in the council room as Ser Davos was the first one to arrive. He then immediately handed the 2 letters they got from Castle Black and Naruto began reading them and what he read shocked him. The rest of the council began to walk into the room. Oberyn, Ser Barristan, Brienne, Kleber, Pycelle, Tyrion, and Robb Stark were in attendance. So what calls our attention, Your Grace? Tyrion asked as Naruto passed the letters around and they all looked at it, with some not believing it at all. Surely you don't believe this, Your Grace? Oberyn asked, referring to the letter about the White Walkers. It's been 1,000 years since the White Walkers walked this earth. It's hard to believe that they had returned. Robb said. I'm not saying that they have returned. But why now of all times? Why not decades, centuries before? Tyrion asked. Grand Maester Pycelle? Any knowledge you would care to share on the White Walkers? Naruto asked. I'm afraid that the White Walkers have not been seen for a millennium, Your Grace. And records on them are very scarce as it is, with any possible records of their existence residing with the Castle Black Maester. Pycelle said. Surely we're not believing this report. For all we know, the Night's Watch guard was hysterical and could have mistaken some wildlings for White Walkers. Kleber said. That doesn't matter now. The other letter does. Mance Rayder marches on Castle Black with an army of 100,000 wildlings. Naruto said. I still can't believe it. From what I've heard, the wildlings have never been able to amass such a large force of numbers before. Brienne said. They have. People who live in the north have grown up with the stories of the wildlings who have tried to march against the wall, following their king beyond the wall, but they've never managed to breach the wall. Robb said. They've never managed to amass an army this large before. And John says that Mance Rayder is much different. He has a group of wildlings south of the wall all ready to strike Castle Black while Mance attacks it from the north. Mance is smart, he's not an idiot. Naruto said as he put the letter on the table and faced the window to think. If Mance tries to attack Castle Black, he'll have to go through the Night's Watch and they would rather die than let the wildlings pass. Marjorie said. That may be true. But Castle Black isn't as it once was years ago. And with the passing of Jeor Mormont, I'm not sure what they can do against 100,000 wildlings. Tyrion said, knowing from his trip there what it was like. Then it'll be up to us to help them. Naruto said as everyone nodded. I know we just ended a war and the kingdom has enjoyed its peace, but this is bigger than all of us. If we don't act together, then we will all pay. What are your orders, Your Grace? Barristan asked. Robb, send out ravens to the northern lords. Have them dispatch whatever supplies and spare men they can to Castle Black. And increase patrols in the north, and act on anything suspicious. If we find the wildling team, then we'll have an edge. Naruto said. Yes, Your Grace. Robb said. The South won't stay back from this too. We'll send aid as well. Pycelle, organize whatever spare food, supplies and weapons we can arrange and get them ready. Naruto said. Yes, Your Grace. Pycelle said. To supply and fight against the wildling army, we'll need ships to transport the goods and men. For that, I believe a talk with the Iron Bank about a possible loan is a good idea. Sir Davos, go with Tyrion to Braavos immediately to talk to the Iron Bank. Davos has the most experience with them, they'll find us men and ships to use. Naruto said. Yes, Your Grace. Davos said. We're off to Braavos. Tyrion said. As for the rest of us, assemble whatever forces we can, soldiers, weapons and everything. After the trials, we head to the wall. Naruto said as they nodded. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.